how women's body hair are considered disgusting when at the same time men having the same body hair are completely normal and acceptable by society. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. We haven't seen each other in a minute. I only made 2 videos in January. Sorry about that. I am coming here to sum up my dry January and all the resolutions that I told you about for that month. So if you're interested, stay with me. I actually managed to stick to majority of them, so I'm quite proud of this part. So I made a resolution, obviously, about not drinking alcohol. I can proudly say that for the whole January I haven't drank any alcohol at all, and I think that's a big success, even though, as I said before, it sounds quite bad when I think about it. I felt like I got to the point when I became kind of dependent on alcohol in terms of my coping mechanism. I was really used to having this glass of wine in the evening, which technically is nothing really wrong considering the whole situation, but I just felt really bad about myself drinking every single day, and I felt like this was discouraging me from doing more things because I could read books, I could be more creative or productive, but because I was drinking alcohol, I would become a bit numb, or you know how you're kind of in this chill zone after alcohol. But I just felt that I could do much more with this time that I have. So the first week was a little bit problematic, but then I feel like I simply forgot. Like I would just start reading books. I had never been able to force myself to read in the past. Like I would be this person who read only when I had to, when I had some kind of lecture, books that I had to know because of university or school, but I didn't really understand the concept of reading for pleasure. And also, if I tried to read, I would end up really struggling. I would read this book for months. I would switch my brain off after a couple of sentences. I wouldn't be able to focus. Like, I just basically considered myself as a non-reading person, which was terrible, and I couldn't really make my peace with it because I always felt like reading books is a trait of intelligent people, and I would only be able to process audiobooks, and when I was doing something else I would be fine with listening, but reading books was just so not there. And I realized this month, January, that maybe it was because I was just choosing wrong books, because I would always try to be ambitious and go for something that would make me a better person, that would be something challenging, educative, or like whatever. Like it could be something psychological, or like, you know, there's this big trend right now when everyone is reading all these motivational books like self-development, mindfulness, whatever it is. So I would kind of go for something like that, but then within a couple of pages I would realize that it's not really convincing. So I would go for something like that and I would immediately stop. So I decided to go for something just simply for the pleasure. As I'm watching series on Netflix and I can spend the whole day watching the whole season, why can't I just go for a book and do the same? So I ordered a few books in first place that were kind of thrillers, because this is something that I usually enjoy watching. I was searching by the ratings and viewers' opinions, like readers' opinions, and therefore I actually managed to read over 7 books in 1 month in January, which seems quite unbelievable for me, to be honest, because I probably haven't read 7 books within 2-3 years or more. I would say 3 years. So that's a huge success. If I could recommend something to anyone, I would definitely say that position number 1, and I probably spoke about this book millions of times, but not on my channel, the book called Come As You Are by Emily Nagoski. This is the book that is one of the harder ones. It's a book about sexual health for women, about sexuality of women, about our body, about our desires, about sex, about everything that everyone technically should know. But what I love about this book, that it's a PhD book, study-based book. It's not any type of BS. You can also see proofs within studies in this book, but it's also translated in really easy language that everyone can understand. So there are letters from patients or friends with specific stories to which the author is responding with specific studies and science, and then she's explaining all the mechanisms going on within us. The main thought of this book, and therefore that's why I think it's really crucial for everyone to know this, is that we are all normal. Everything that is going on with our body, unless it's something hurtful, means that we're normal. And as women, the sexuality of men is set as default. Like by porn, we actually see many things through these lenses, and it's not true, because every woman is different. We have different desires. She's talking a lot about our body, how it's constructed, how porn has cheated us into thinking that penetrative sex is the one and only default sex that we should be having, and this is absolutely not true as well. About how the spontaneous desire that most of men experience is not something majority of women experience, and we have responsive and we have contextual desire, meaning that everything that is going around us, all the emotional stresses, everything that is going on can impact our desire, unlike most of men. So we actually can respond with really low sex drive because of stress that we're going through or anything that is going on in our life. And it's okay to be this way. The thing is, we're not broken. We just need to manage the situation from a different point of view. It talks a lot about our turn-offs and turn-ons, and how different people have different sensitivity to certain things, and how you can be really sensitive to situations, but you also have this mental blocks. And basically it's a really amazing, really educational book, and I think many people, like if not everyone, should really go through it, because it covers so many topics. Culture that we live in has convinced us to think about ourselves, how we tend to look at ourselves with a lot of hatred, with a lot of disgust, how we were programmed often by our religions that there's something wrong with pleasure, that women's pleasure is not important, and how we tend to think that we are just meant to give babies. And many people actually support these ways of thinking still, unfortunately. So I think that because it's a really scientific book and it shows a lot of studies, as I said, it also points out the biology. It covers also a lot of psychological aspects. It's a really great position, and I highly recommend this. The other book that I found really interesting, and it is quite feminist book, if we can call it this way. It's called Women Don't Owe You Pretty. About this book, it's a really nicely written book. It definitely targets more of a younger generation than older. I would say even the fact that the author of this book is 21 years old is quite telling. It kind of covers the basis of feminism, a kind of guide for teenagers, how to stand for themselves, what is okay, what is not okay, how to be careful. It goes against many misconceptions, stereotypes about femininity and being a woman, and that nobody owes anyone giving sex, nobody owes anyone performing femininity, that as women we have literally the right to decide for our body, and the fact that the society that we live in and capitalism has convinced us that we need to do certain things in order to be perceived as feminine is just really wrong from the start, because all the big concerns and companies are profiting from us buying the products. Like, you know, all these influencers on Instagram constantly convincing us that there's something wrong with us if we don't have completely firm without any kind of stretch mark skin, and they will give, because they create problem that we didn't even know we have. As a little girl, did you think about yourself that there's something broken with you if you have a stretch mark or if you have a little mark on your skin? No, you would never think like that. It's just the whole notion in social media convincing you that there's something wrong with it, but then they are selling you a solution for this problem that never existed, but they created these problems. So therefore we buy all these anti-cellulite massagers, we buy some kind of cleansers for our skin, a lot of different cosmetics that technically we also never needed, but somehow right now we all do, right? Because obviously it is really affordable for many people and many companies to convince women that we need all of them to be beautiful and desirable, because who doesn't want to be desirable and beautiful? We all do. So I think it may be quite eye-opening, especially for younger women, to have way more distance to what is shown on social media, how women's body hair are considered disgusting, when at the same time men having the same body hair are completely normal and acceptable by society. It's a really interesting position. In terms of design, illustrations, I highly recommend that. So I would say definitely yes. Apart from that, all the thrillers that I read, not all of them were great, but the one that was actually really great was The Silent Patient, but I think that everyone who reads thrillers probably heard of this one because it was a big bestseller. Good position. I also read 2 first parts of Harry Potter because I had never read them before, shamingly. So yeah, my reading was actually really good during January. I was working out also regularly, the next point of my list. I must say it wasn't really that restrictive. I would either work out or go for a walk, depending on the day and how I felt. Some days I would read whole day and not move myself from bed, and I found that acceptable as well. I just kind of gave myself more space to do whatever I felt like at this specific day. What I kind of failed in. So I initially planned to reduce salt and oil, and that didn't work well. Maybe for the first week I would be more careful about that, but that definitely didn't work. I was trying to eat more whole foods, but we also happened to order a few deliveries, so it wasn't so perfect, but I'm not really feeling that guilty about it, because I also managed to stick to drinking a lot of water, and I must say, since past month I feel way better about myself because of this. Even if it wasn't water, we would drink a lot of different herbal teas. The other part that I kind of failed was my French. I only listened to my French, like I only practiced learning French a few times, not really that often, because I would either read, so I couldn't do that in the meantime. If I went for a walk, I couldn't listen to it because you need to repeat it out loud, so that would be a little bit awkward. That was a failure. And the other failure for me was sewing. So I purchased myself a book about lingerie design and pattern cutting, and I had big hopes. And when I received this book, it appeared to be mainly based on patterns. Briefly, it had a lot of descriptions of how to make patterns for specific things, so I thought, okay, that's great, we're gonna start from here. And then after I started to make the first basic pattern, it really quickly appeared to me that this book has a lot of mistakes, which I am really disappointed about, and I kind of cannot believe that this kind of position was published without checking all these points. And in first place, I thought it was my fault that I made some kind of mistakes, that maybe didn't see every aspect of it. I was because there's a lot of counting in pattern cuttings. We have descriptions on how to create the whole pattern based on our measurements. So I would take measurements from me. There would be a table within which we would have to write all the measurements that we have from our body, and we proceed to follow descriptions and draw lines according to these numbers. And my patterns would turn out completely wrong at some points, and there were also points when I would suddenly have a measurement that wasn't in the table in first place. It really didn't show properly, in my opinion, in detail what kind of measurements exactly I need to take from my body. So there was probably a lot of mistakes in this one as well. I think they should be a little bit more precise about, like, because there was a little drawing of the body and which body parts you need to measure. In pattern cutting, it's all about being precise and being really detailed about everything. I also started to search for opinions online, because I was thinking, is it just me or what's going on? And unfortunately, under the book where I purchased it, I saw a few comments with exactly the same thoughts as I have, that these are wrong, mistaken descriptions, that they just don't add up and there's something really wrong here. So that's highly disappointing, and to the point that it really discouraged me from doing it. And I know it shouldn't, but somehow it didn't, because I spent quite a lot of money on that book, and it turned out to be not really useful. I need to have things pointed out, how to do this exactly, and I feel like because it says in complete guide to lingerie design, and unfortunately I have to disagree with this one. It's definitely not. So yeah, this is the part that I felt, as well as my French, as my salt and oil. But apart from that, I feel like it went fine for me. It was a quite positive month. February already started for me with a little pinch of salt, because I already got a message from my work that they are restructuring company once again. So once again, it raises my stress levels, because I'm afraid I'm gonna lose my job. And if I lose my job, I'm gonna have to go back to Poland, which is not really what I want to do. But regardless of that, I'm not gonna complain and moan here once again. I hope February will be as positive as it could be. So thank you so much for being here with me. Let me know how your January went. Did you stick to your resolutions, or you didn't? Are you okay? How's life, basically? Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and leave me a comment. That would be really great if you could support me. I also encourage you to follow me on Instagram and TikTok, as I mentioned before, and I hope you're having a lovely day. Thank you for being here with me, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye bye.